we see you come, we all don't gladly if they tell you cabo. Cabo, 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 cabo. Anytime we see you, where you go you can, we must tell you cabo.
Anytime we see you, when you go, you come, we must tell you cabo. When I was going to school as a small boy, I had this ambition of becoming a pilot. That was why I did concentrate on studying geography, mathematics, and such subjects that would have allowed me to become a pilot. But fate would have it that I would end up being a teacher. I have never regretted being a teacher in my life because at this material moment, I think my job as a teacher will help my country. We have a common belief that silver and gold is better than knowledge. Today, a country that has abundance is suffering. Why are we suffering? Because we underrated the value of knowledge. We underrated the power of God. God is knowledge. God is intellect. God is the absolute intelligence that exists. And each of us has the image and likeness of God, the ability to think, to rationalize, and to make use of the elements of the earth. Before 1929, we had diamonds in Sierra Leone. There is a story, a myth, I don't know whether it's true or false, which states that the people of Boajibo were using those diamond stones as crystal stones to do soothsaying. Then came a Catholic priest who discovered that these were modern devil stones. He took it to Freetown and it was sent further for analysis, and they discovered it was diamond. Then everybody saw the value of diamond. Learning has to be always better than silver and gold, my people. Today, I intend to dwell on the basic facts of the place we call Sierra Leone, the potentials that place has, and the fact that we cannot perceive the potentials of that place because we lack the necessary education. We lack the learning to make us understand and to make us do what needs to be done for Sierra Leone to be the richest country in Africa, if not the world. I will present certain facts that had been known centuries ago by Europeans. And we have all these people saying they're educated. We are the Athens of West Africa. But don't we know these facts? Don't we? We are claiming to be religious. Our religious scriptures have told us that Solomon was the richest man to have ever lived. But he got knowledge first before he became rich. Even today, we see that happening. People who seek knowledge most, who use knowledge most, are the ones who get rich. Well, maybe in Africa, people who go into politics get rich, but they may not become as rich as those people who use knowledge, because wealth is made out of solving the challenges that we face in life. When you solve a challenge, when you face a problem and solve it, then you produce a good or service that brings wealth. The Bible told us that Solomon got knowledge, then he became rich. The Holy Quran told us the same thing. And in fact, the Holy Quran refers to him as Mulku, Mulku, wise man, Sulaimani. Today we use the word Munku and say, oh, he doesn't know anything. It's a reversal of Mulku. What a funny world we live. Sierra Leone can become the richest country on earth. But there are certain things we need to know, and there are certain things we need to do. And if we are to do those things, we have to get rid of most of what we do today. As a matter of fact, that's one measure of progress. If we are talking about change, change is not a physical process. It's not when you build houses that you've changed. It's not when you build roads that you've changed. If you build all those things and you don't change what is inside here, you'd end up messing up those things. a whole population of people who cannot think properly, bring them to the most developed country. And take a whole population of people who think properly, take them to a least developed country. Give them a decade, you'll see the difference. Because knowledge is supreme. The intellect is what creates. Every human being is a creator in or his or our own way. But we've allowed ourselves to be blindfolded by certain egoistic and wrong beliefs and perceptions, such that today most of us are zombies rather than creators. We've encased ourselves with some kind of arrogant ignorance, I would say. I have a PhD. Yeah, you have a PhD, but are you thinking? Are you seeing how you can transform the elements of the earth? We have 5 fingers, and each of these fingers represents a structural existence on Mother Earth. This represents God, intellect. Take this off, then all of the 4 become powerless, cannot hold anything. Prove it. This, the pointing finger, represents intelligence. It represents truth. It represents constructive, rational thinking. Then you have earth, air, water. When you combine this, then you create. And in the midst of all of it, you have to have the power of intellect, the image and likeness of God in you. But let's come to the topic. Why do I say Sierra Leone can become the richest country in Africa, if not the world? Sierra Leone has a lot of potentials. I'll begin first and foremost by sharing a document I created today for this talk show. The historical facts about Sierra Leone. This is a quotation from an article that I got from a research. I am doing a research to develop materials that will take us out of ignorance. Because I have come to understand that ignorance is the problem we have. Our problem is not political. Our problem is not ethnic. Today, I'm not talking about our history. I have decided that I'll do history on Fridays. Tuesdays, I'll talk about social issues. Our problem is not ethnicity. If we think we have ethnicity, it's not about politics. It's not about regions. It's about our perceptions, our beliefs, our attitudes, our behavior to each other. In the midst of abundance, because all of these things are wrong, that's why we are not getting it. As a matter of fact, we are the ones creating poverty for ourselves. We are creating poverty because we have not taken time to look at the resources that we need and to identify how we can go about using these resources for the general good. This article was written in, sorry, I didn't take the date of it, but it is a recent article written about the slave trade in the 19th century, the Timneland, and the British sphere of influence. And it states, I quote, "For centuries, every European who visited Sierra Leone was struck by the great potential for trade to which the area seemed geographically suited." Take note, geographically suited, and take note of the word potential for trade. Caravans from Kankan, Ségou, and even from far away Bamako and Timbuktu came down through Sigri and Farana, passed through the dispersal points inland of the forest at Timbo, Bumbang, and Samaya, and carried the gold, ivory, hides, and produce of the interior down to the tidewater towns of Timniland. From Cambia, Mange, Putloko, Magbele, the trade accumulated with local produce, and the caravans ferried their goods by canoe and bull boat to the European ships waiting off the mountainous peninsula in Freetown, in West Africa's deepest and largest, take note, deepest and largest natural harbor. That's a historical fact that had been known for centuries. And that fact still is present. I have had people say, Stephen can pull the railway. Yes, do we know why the British, in fact, made that railway? They made that railway for trade. But the railway was outdated. Since we got independence, have we ever sat down to think about how we can use this West Africa's deepest and largest natural harbor for profit? There had been a trade route before, going as far as Timbuktu in Mali. Can we visualize a railway from Freetown passing through Guinea onto Timbuktu and Mali, in Mali and beyond? Do we know what benefits that will bring to us? Instead of we sit down to think about these things, we will sit down to think about how to create disruption and crisis in the country. Are we really thinking in Sierra Leone? If I may ask. Are we thinking? Well, maybe we'll start to think soon, because I have made up my mind that for God and country, I'll be coming out with these facts for everybody to see. Because one thing I've come to understand is it's not only an issue of ignorance, it's an issue of mass ignorance. I would not call it illiteracy, please. It's not illiteracy. It's not lack of education. It's lack of knowing the facts. If few know it, but the few know it would sit alone and say, oh, what do I care? As long as things are working for me. Yes, it may be working for you as far as you are concerned, but it is not working. It is not working because you may have all the dollars in your bank account. You may have all the pound sterlings in your bank account. You may have all the leons or whatever in your bank account. If the nation does not function, there will be no electricity. There will be no pipe running water. There will be no clean air. There will be nothing. The hospitals will not be functioning, and everything will be in disarray. So your money cannot work for you in such cases. Yes, you may say, okay, when I get sick, I'll cut a ticket. Who knows? You may cut a ticket to go to seek medical assistance on the way you die, because you don't have the infrastructure at home for you to go regularly and do checkups. If you have to go for checkups, it's going to cost you a lot of money because you have to do it annually and you have to pay your tickets and things like that. can we begin to think now how to make Sierra Leone? This is just the historical fact. And of course, from the historical fact, let's go to the geolocational and other facts that I had researched myself. Look at this diagram, which I created. This is Sierra Leone as it is positioned in Africa and in the Atlantic region. Sierra Leone as a country is equidistant. That means you can go to all the major cities in the Atlantic region within an equal time frame with a maximum of 8 hours by air and 16 days by sea. As a matter of fact, it is because of this equidistance that we are able, when you are in Freetown, to receive radio receptions from Argentina, Brazil, Caribbean, USA, UK, Las Palmas, etc. Yes, because radio waves travel far and wide if there is no barrier, and especially if it goes through a distance that is not too far. If you have a fast boat, you leave Freetown now, you can reach New York within 4 hours. Yes? Yes. As long as you are able to find your way, to pilot your way, you can reach New York from Freetown within 4 hours with a very fast boat. Added to that, we have the third largest natural harbor on Earth. What I read just now, the historical fact, stated that we have the largest natural harbor in West Africa. As a matter of fact, it's the largest in Africa. It's the third largest in the world. Yes. Then, there is the other fact, which I'll come to last. I'll leave that for now. The demographic facts. I did a lot of data on that. Let's come to the land potentials, the agro-potentials. For this, I think I would put this down and take something else. Okay. Let me see. Right. Here is the same map that you saw just now. This land area, this is specifically for Sierra Leone, but it extends into Guinea and it extends also into Liberia. This land area, which is called the coastal plains, as it is written here. Let me expand this a bit. The coastal plains, see here? This land is a riverine basin. Oh, sorry. Oh, what have I done? Sorry about that, people. Okay, we're back. It's a riverine basin that extends close to 35 miles inland from the coast. And this basin is a swampland area that receives a lot of nutrients, water, etc., from the rivers that flow from the interior high plateau down to the coast. So this is an area that does not need maybe refertilization or chemicals. It only needs efficient land management or soil management. And this area can produce up to 1 million tons of rice per annum, 2 yields per annum. This area. This is where you find Tomabom, you find Rokupor, you find Wala, etc. Even here you have Rombe and these other places. It can produce 1 million tons of rice. We have that potential. Not only to produce rice, to make rice cheap for everybody in Sierra Leone, but also to produce rice for it to be exported. Well, of course, there is a problem that we've always had, which is why agriculture has never developed in Sierra Leone. Or there are problems we've always had. First and foremost, we've always had the wrong beliefs, the wrong perceptions, and the wrong attitudes towards those issues that will develop us as a people. Agriculture, industry. These were things that we felt, oh, these are not for the boys. These are not for the Ivy people. They are for the proletariat. They are for the commoners. Today, the commoners and us, we go to market and suffer it. Yeah, because we had the wrong beliefs, we had the wrong perceptions, we had the wrong attitudes. Everybody wanted a white-collar necktie job in office. Everybody wanted to become a lawyer, a doctor. Nobody wanted to become a farmer. In Norway, where I live, 90% of the people have farms. 90%. When I say farms or garden or something, but they are engaged in agriculture. That's why, as a matter of fact, those who work in the public sector and those who work in normal office jobs, they go to work from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, then they come home. From 4 o'clock, maybe up to 8:30, they are busy taking care of their garden, their animals, or whatever. Yes. Yes. The greater percentage of Norwegians live in the rural areas because they are engaged in some form of agriculture. In Sierra Leone, the greater percentage live in the cities and towns because they don't want to be engaged in agriculture. But again, we have the second problem. We don't expect these people to walk by foot, to go to their villages and engage in agriculture with their hands, their bare hands. So we have to look at what strategies are we going to use to ensure that we can utilize these tracts of land. And looking at the strategies, we have to have a model that will encourage people to stay in agriculture. Gone are the days, because that's another thing that we're coming to. Gone are the days when you would employ people and pay them slave wages. We have been blaming the whites that they were the ones who took us into, yes, they took us into slavery, but we were the slave masters. I'll come to that. Not now. And we still have slave masters running our countries, because if a few people can be earning $4,000, $5,000 a month, then the majority are earning less than $200 and they can't live. Then it's slavery. It's slavery of some sort. We have to begin to look at how we can change that. But coming back to this agriculture issue, we have to plan. And one thing we should get out of the matrix, the issue of government involvement in agriculture. That will never produce the result we want. Get it off the matrix, please. Government can make the policies. Government can train the scientists to take care of agriculture. They should provide that. But for government to invest in agriculture, it will never work. It will never work. It may work maybe sometime in the future, but for now, it will never work, because we don't understand what it means to be a participant in governance. If we want to utilize these lands, we have two options. We either organize the landowners in these areas, in the chiefdoms, into cooperatives and give them the materials for them to do the work. We get a company, a private company, or a semi-autonomous company to be responsible for the logistics and marketing, or let us make it open to private owners to come and work with the people, but we give them a condition on which they want to work. They have to work with the people. That I would not say, because if we are interested in doing it, I think it's time we begin to open up and allow people to participate. By this I mean, those who sit in government should begin to talk to some of us. Talk to us, we'll show you what to do. Your models cannot work, because your models are neo-colonialist. Take it from me. We have to move from neo-colonialism to social democracy. That's as much as I can say. If we want Sierra Leone to work, let's move from that neo-colonialist perception, beliefs, and mentality to a more open, inclusive, social democratic model. And with this kind of governance attitude we are miles away from that. Miles away, light years away. Now, let's go to the next factors. Of course, these are other areas that can be used for agriculture. These are other areas that can be used to grow various different types of crops. Like in this zone, you can grow pepper, ginger, etc. Here, you can do cash crops, etc. We have the potential. I'm not giving a lecture, I'm giving a sensitization talk. If you are interested, go find these data, study them and see. If you care to get to me, I'll give you what to look for. If you don't care to, fine, I don't care. Okay? Now, let's go back to our original document. It's not this one. Let's go back to our original document. It's this. Right. We are finished with the land issue. Let's come to the next most important issue, the human resource facts about Sierra Leone. The population. If we are to go by a median assessment model, which is called the population clock, Sierra Leone should be around 8.8 million people now. Whether it's correct or not, I have no way to prove. We are having about 730 births per day, 209 deaths per day. This may not be correct, considering the nutritional and other conditions in the country. But what I believe is correct is this: that the median age in Sierra Leone today is about 19 or 20 years. Also, this demographic data, I am sure, is very correct. And if we are to go by this data, we have a population of 54.4% in the employable age. This is what I left out in the last part of that first diagram I showed. Between age 15 and 64, this is the employable age. In this part of the world, when a child is about 15, 16, they will begin to go into apprenticeship. They will go and get jobs wherein they receive a wage that is less than the normal wage. They don't work full time because they have to begin to learn work ethics, etc., etc. By age 18, the child is matured enough to be employed full time. And from 18 to 60, that's the most productive time of every human being. Are we using this to our advantage? Because we have 54% of our population in that age. Are we? Instead, we are introducing them to things that will destroy them and shorten their lives. Drugs, alcohol, stress, lack of opportunities, etc. We traumatize, we distress, and we destroy this very important economic good that we have. The human resource is an economic good. There are countries without minerals that have developed their human resource and have become successful economies. South Korea, Singapore, name them, go find out. They're there. We have this population and we are doing nothing to develop it. Instead, we are preaching hate and acrimony every day. These are the people who suffer from what we are doing now. This age, they suffer most. Those above 65, they'll say, okay, whatever happens, I'll soon go away. Those below may be suffering from lack, but they may not psychologically understand the full weight of what the people in this age are suffering. And it is the people in this age bracket who, because of lack, we convert and force to become criminals. If there is criminality in the society, it's because of our inability to plan for this age group that we have criminality in the society. If we plan for them well, if each and every one of them has something to do, if there is self-reliance, if there is trust in the society, these people will never become criminals. As a matter of fact, with all this talk about anarchy, coup, insurrection, these are the people who are dissatisfied, who want to express their anger. Nobody is pushing them. They are angry because they have a right to be here. We have to be responsible enough to begin to plan for them. We have to be responsible enough to think of how we can fast track things that will make them become less angry. If we think by introducing drug will control anger, we are not doing any good to ourselves because we are destroying the future of the country. And we are creating more problems by having more drug addicts in society. Yes. Production will stop, everything will stop, and our money will become useless. Your dollar will become useless because you have nothing to buy with it. If the whole society is on drug, there will be nobody to drive a car. There will be nobody to work at the key. So you cannot even import goods and services. Honestly. So we better begin to think correctly. We better begin to think correctly. We cannot continue like this. We have this resource potential. How do we fast track developing this resource potential? What do we do? How do we do it? There is a way. There is a way we can do it. There is a way we can do it. But we have to change the modus operandi that we've created. We have to change it. If we don't, then we cannot do what needs to be done. It will not work. It will not. Let us please begin to put the power of the intellect before everything that we do in Africa, not only Sierra Leone, in Africa. Minimize the power of emotions, increase on the power of the use of the intellect. Think, rationalize, plan. Don't plan for tomorrow, plan for decades to come. Norway planned for decades to come since 1958. In 1958, the government and the people came together and said, the human resource we have is an economic good. Let us put funds into it to develop it. They came up with a taxation system that will allow them to fund education, to fund skills development. And they declared that nobody should pay fees from the first class up to the highest level at university. As I talk, that policy still holds. And it's not only about, oh, we have free quality. No. They ensure that there is fund for equipping the schools, each school has maximum equipment. They ensure they provide money for teaching materials. Each school has enough teaching material. They ensure they provide money for training professional teachers. There are people teaching in the primary schools with masters. Yes. Yes. The kindergartens are run by professionals, graduates in child development and child education, because those basic ages are the most important ages of any human being. That's when you form your concepts. That's when you develop your character from age 5 up to age 12. Whatever happens to you at that time will live with you forever. Except, of course, if you make conscious effort to move away from what had gone wrong. In Sierra Leone, that's the time most of us were destroyed. Poor parenting, bad educational approaches, etc., has created and put into society a lot of traumatized adults. And these traumatized adults go into politics, they go into administration, they do all the wrong things. We are only seeing corruption. It's not corruption alone. It's not corruption alone that is our problem. As a matter of fact, corruption is a product. It's a product of those sociological or socio-psychological factors that most of us inherited. If we are ready to make Sierra Leone, we have to begin to think now about those issues. We have to begin to think about how to provide the country with professional teachers. It's not teaching for teaching's sake. Somebody can have a PhD, but he's not a teacher. Standing in front of a classroom talking does not make anyone a teacher. A teacher has to understand the psychology and other things of the people that is teaching. You have to create an environment for diversity and for every student to accept and accommodate what you are teaching. You have to make provision for every student to express themselves and to inquire into their talents. Instead of forcing the child to think like you, allow the child to think on their own and develop their talents. Most of us went to school, we were forced to think like the teacher. They gave us notes. We have to regurgitate these notes and reproduce it word for word. Even at university, that's what happened. So a lot of people went through the process and came out empty. They cannot apply what they got the qualification for. Because we didn't have teachers. We had people who stood before us and spoke. A teacher takes into consideration the fact that you are developing a mind that should be able to apply what is learned today at some point in time tomorrow. I am applying what I learned years ago, talking to you now. Some of the facts I'm using here, my ability to use them was learned before 1979. That's a long time ago, but I can still use them. How many of us can still use the knowledge we learned decades ago? We've forgotten most of them. Well, of course, we learned so much that we cannot use everything. We learned so much that we cannot use everything. But at the same time, if we learned them well, we could be able to use them or apply them at different points in time in our lives. Yes. As a geographer, I learned aspects of surveying. I am not a certified surveyor, but I think I can do basic surveying. So if I give somebody a task to survey and he does not do it properly, I know. Yeah, I know. As a geographer, I learned about meteorology. I'm able to look at weather and make predictions. I'm able to look at climatological data and make predictions. As a geographer, I did studies in economic development. This is what is allowing me to think the way I'm thinking and talking today. I am able to use these facts because I did not just take them in and reproduce them in an exam. I read, I understood, I researched. That kind of education we don't have in Sierra Leone. Secondly, the kind of education we put emphasis on is not for us. It's for a country that is already developed. We are training administrators, clerks, and academics, basically. Yeah, maybe in the last few years, we are diverting a bit, going into technical and vocational. But the question is, how much equipment and materials do we have for those types of education to be acquired and be used in the future? You say you're training carpenters. How many of them can work in a modern factory? They don't have the equipment. Carpentry is not about nail and hammer and saw. It's far beyond that. It's far beyond that. And it has to be hands-on training, practical training with the equipment. Have we thought about how to fund education to equip our schools? If we cannot equip all the schools, have we thought about how to have polytechnical centers in each district? We used to have trade centers. Where are they today? Where are they? Those were polytechnical centers. And I remember sometime in the 70s and 80s, they were very equipped. Where are they today? We are saying we give 20, how much percent of the budget? 20, how much percent of zero is zero, mathematically. Can we devise a strategy to fund education without overburdening the economy or without overburdening the business sector? Can we? Are we going to give the relevance that education needs to education without making it a political game? Maybe if we do that, we'll see the full potentials of our country. Because when the human resource has the capacity to produce goods and services, it's the beginning of economic development. The production of goods and services means people will earn income from these goods and services, and they will in turn be able to consume more. The more people consume, the more demand there will be for goods and services. The more demand there is for goods and services, the more there will be need for production. That is what economic development is all about. It's not about your figures and your big talks. It's that simple, but it has to start with education, given the right type of education for every person to have the ability to develop and manifest the talent. Each person has a natural talent. Each human being has a natural talent. We starve those talents by the type of education we have. Everything is about academics. So those who cannot, they fall off and they go to waste. Are we helping ourselves? We have a lot of rethinking to do in Sierra Leone. Let us put down the egos. There's too much ego in the country. I'm this, and you're nothing. You don't know even what you want to do. You only have a certificate and you are seeking affluence or whatever you call it. Put it down. Let's develop Sierra Leone. Please. We can do it if we are ready. But we have to change our beliefs, change our perceptions, change our attitudes, and change our behavior. Above all, every Sierra Leonean has a right to be. And let us respect that right. Not by politics alone, but by creating the enabling environment for every Sierra Leonean to develop their talent and become self-reliant. Now, let's go to the part that most people think is what brings development. The geological part, the minerals. We get plenty mineral. It's how money they go. You have plenty minerals, but you don't have the education to use it. So just forget it. If I was head of state at this time, I'll close all the mines and find a way to put money in agriculture and education so that we'll eat well, stay healthy, get our children educated, fast-track skills development, then we can go into mining. Because when we have people who can convert bauxite into aluminium, we have people who can convert iron ore into iron ingots, who can polish and diamonds and make something out of them, then we'll begin to develop. The geological map, like the soils or what map, are very similar because the geology of our country is such that the rocks run north-south. Some part of it going to Guinea, some part of it coming to Liberia. So Guinea as well as Liberia have equally the same potentials as we have geologically. This whole area, you see, is a rock belt where you can find gold, diamond, and other precious stones. And within this area also, we have incidences of alumina and ferric oxide rocks. That's where you have the Tonkolili mines now. So what does that tell you? Our inability to have correct geological data since independence is a loss for our country. Our inability to make open the geological resource of our country is a loss for our country. If we mean good for our country, we should revisit the geological contracts that we have with companies. Because some of these companies are mining minerals they are not accounting for. I wouldn't go beyond that. But as far as I know, there is so much potential that if we can, and we mean to, and we are ready to come with a policy of mining and environmental management that will ensure that after mining, the land can be put into some other use, that can provide enough resources for us to accelerate our development. Before ever we're rushing into looking for investors to come and invest, let us understand what we have. Let us know what we have. And let us dictate how what we have is going to be mined. Norway knew they had oil since 1950s. They decided to delay mining oil. Instead, they decided, let us put money into education so that we'll develop our human capacity to take control of the oil that we have. The year that Norway decided to increase taxation on education to provide funds for education, for schools and institutions to be properly equipped, it was the same year that Nigeria started mining oil. Norway delayed mining oil until 1969. The Americans came, they spoke with them, they said, no, thank you. We are not mining our oil now because we want to take full charge of our oil. Then guess what? By 1969, they had an Iranian who was married to a Norwegian, and this Iranian was a geologist, mineral resource engineer. They asked him to help them. He came out with a policy plan and everything. They discussed it in Parliament, they accepted it. Then they started mining at Ekofisk in the North Sea. They created an institutional framework that allowed the country to benefit. What you call today local content in Sierra Leone, Norway created it. Yes, that was the way they got the other foreign companies coming in to ensure that they subcontract Norwegian businesses, and these businesses got paid for their services. They distributed the wealth. It was not within one company to buy this, to procure that, etc., etc. Also, the state ensured that the taxes they got from the oil was sufficient enough. They started mining in 1969. By 1990, they realized too much money was coming into the economy. The economy was getting overheated. They stopped down again and said, oh, we're having too much money. What do we do? They didn't make parties with Achiobi and things like that. They said, let's save this money for future generation. The oil will finish someday. Let's think about the future. In the past, our people suffered. Plague almost exterminated us. So let us don't make this mistake when we have this opportunity. They decided to launch the Norwegian Pension Fund, a sovereign fund, and they passed into law that fund in 1990 with conditionalities that the money should not be invested in Norway. It should be invested outside, because they didn't want people within the country to grab all the money and create inequality. Today, as I speak, Norway has the largest sovereign fund on earth. Next to Norway is China. We have all these mineral resources. What have we benefited from it from 1960? We're talking about diamonds. Yes, we have diamonds. There's diamonds almost all over West Africa, all over Central Africa, down to Botswana. The only country in Africa that is benefiting from diamonds is Botswana. The same company that ran SLST is the company mining in Botswana, De Beers Consolidated. The government of Botswana got them to sign an agreement wherein they will get more profits. And then the money from the diamonds was put into a sovereign fund by the Botswana government. It's called the Pula Fund. Go and find out the Pula Fund. Pula in their language means rain. Botswana and Lesotho and these countries, they will go for long periods of drought. So they always have this tradition of praying for rain. So even their currency is called Pula, P-U-L-A. They have the Pula Fund. It's a sovereign fund. They manage the diamond income and resources such that Botswana is a very stable economy. It's one of the few countries in Africa that don't have debts with international institutions. We're crying about Niger, about those. It is not France that is responsible. It's where we think. Botswana was part of British South African colonization. But the way the people think has made the country different. We're always finding places to blame or people to blame because we are doing the wrong things and we don't want to accept that we are wrong. It's time we begin to accept that we are not thinking properly. That's why we are not getting the equation. It's the British, it's the French. Yes, go to Asia. The French and the British were there also. India suffered worse colonization than any country in Africa. Vietnam was originally a French colony. They pulled out, America came, the country was destroyed. Up to 1980, Vietnam was a destroyed nation. Today, they are better developed than Sierra Leone. How did they do it? This is what they used. It's time we stop the blame game. It's time we stop preaching hate. It's time we begin to look at how we can build trust, how we can build unity, how we can make use of these potentials. Because there is so much. There is so much. If we can, and if we are ready, Sierra Leone in the next decade will become the richest country in Africa, if not the world. Yes, I want you to believe that. I'll bet my life for that. I'll stake my life for that. Yes, I know what I'm saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. And I believe if we are ready to, we can do it. If we are ready to, we can do it. If you don't know how to, please ask around, get my number, call me and talk to me. I'll show you. Thank you for listening to me. Have a nice weekend.
we see you come, we all don't gladly we dey tell you Cabo. Cabo, 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 Cabo. Anytime we see you, where you go you can, we must tell you Cabo. Mama.